Welcome to the Vine Resources Podcast Show with your host, David Lawrence.
Welcome to another edition of the Vine Resources Podcast Show. I'm absolutely delighted today to have with me Rob Bell. Rob is the CEO of 86400 over in Sydney, Australia. Rob, thanks so much for joining me.
Great to be here. Great to chat to you.
Rob, I was really excited when you said you'd join us on the podcast because over the years, I've always followed what's happening in the banking world in Australia. And it was really interesting to hear, obviously, you launching 86400. Can you tell our listeners to the podcast show a little bit about your company and what you're building there?
Absolutely. We are Australia's newest smart bank. We've launched just recently. We are a end-to-end digital bank for consumers, and we've got a really strong purpose of what we want to do. Money has become difficult to manage. It's become complicated, and our purpose is to help Australians take control of their money. And we're doing that by launching a very different bank in Australia, 86400.
Fantastic. And I know that, you've got over 100 employees in the company and growing incredibly fast. You've also offered, launched mortgages and loans this week as part of the company offering. If I was a 30-something Australian and perhaps I was with a Westpac or Commonwealth or NAB, why would I consider swapping? And what are the quick things that would help me?
Yeah, look, there's a whole bunch of things there, and one of the first things that probably surprises people is that we say it's actually okay to keep seeing other banks. No reason to leave your other bank at the moment. We're only asking you to try us, and we've made that incredibly easy. So 120 seconds, you can download the app and you can become a customer. You can then do a bunch of things that other banks just don't let you do. So, for example, we can connect all your other bank accounts at your other banks to 86400, and we can actually show you a full financial picture of your world alongside your 86400 accounts. And we then take things and do things that banks just don't do anywhere else. For example, we will help you predict your upcoming bills. We'll show you that your Netflix bill is in 10 days' time, or that your power bill is coming out in 4 weeks' time. So we're actually turning banking on its head and making it about looking forward, not just about a record of history, a record of the past.
Fantastic. You're not showing anyone if your Disney Plus outage is not working already, are you?
Well, I tell you what, it's been absolutely fascinating in that we've got some super smart people in the business, some great engineers, really smart people. But this feature, they're going, oh, hang on, I've been paying for that subscription for like the last year and I haven't used it. I can save $500 a year.
That's
so it's
fantastic.
Just an incredible feature that people love.
Fantastic. Rob, we're going to jump it straight into the questions if that's okay. Look, as a leader of the business, can you share what a typical day in the business looks like for you?
Yeah, sure. Look, in terms of my day, I start really early. I like to go for a surf before work in the morning, and I'm lucky enough that that's both my passion and my exercise ticked off in the same box. I commute to work. It's usually an hour, and that means great time for emails. Listening to podcasts, of course, is my new favourite thing for my commute. But emails and catching up on the news. We've got a really small office. We've actually got nearly 100 people in an office that probably is more suitable to 60. So when I get to work, it's pretty easy to connect with people and see what's happening on the floor. There's usually stand-up meetings happening around the place, which I'll connect in with. I spend a lot of time with my direct reports. We're a regulated bank, so there are lots of things that need to be done to meet those mandatory requirements. But I always find myself drifting back to the products and the marketing and the tech teams, where the questions of, how do we help Australians take control of their money are answered. And the biggest thing usually is around prioritisation of build and features. Commute home, and I tend to do less serious things on the commute home, more pleasurable things on the way home. But I do spend a lot of time after hours on social channels, just seeing what our customers are saying and the questions they're asking. I have access to all different communication channels, so I can see what's happening, and it just gives me a real sense in the early days of how customers are experiencing this and whether we're helping them or not.
Fantastic. I'll have to ask you that your secret surf spots later as well in Sydney. What
could never disclose those.
You've obviously had a pretty amazing career yourself. I mean, you're also CEO of ANZ Japan, and within the banking industry for a long time. I'm just curious about who's inspired you as a leader in your career, and what influence have they had?
Yeah, look, one of the first persons that I think of when I think of leadership is a lady called Alona Walsh, who was the store manager at a Just Jeans store that I worked at when I was just a kid. And she created this really fun environment. She gave us these ridiculous sales targets, and she taught me how to sell. And it wasn't until years afterwards that I kind of realised that what she was doing, and she probably didn't even realise it herself, was she was creating a great culture. She was giving us, really clear goals, and she invested money in me. She actually, took a kid and taught me how on a retail floor how to sell. And so I often think of Alona. I actually haven't been able to track her down. I'd love to try and find her. She got married, so I don't know what her surname is these days, but I would love to track her down. More recent years, I worked with John McFarlane, the CEO of one of the biggest banks in Australia for a while, and then went on to chair Barclays. Fantastic leader in terms of he really understood that changing culture and was a really big and difficult thing to do, but he went about actually tackling it and trying to change things.
Fantastic. Well, that leads on nicely to my next question, and I'm curious to know what you're doing to really keep your employees engaged in the business.
Yeah, it's a really important one for us, and we actually start before people even join us. We're really upfront about what it's like to work at 86400, which is incredibly, people work really hard at 86400. The speed they have to operate is really quick. If they're looking for an expert, it's often they should go to the bathroom and look in the mirror because the expert's probably them that we're looking for. So we really make that clear before people join us, just to make sure that it's genuinely what they want to get into. We are not suitable for, there's a lot of people who have worked at really, really big banks in really senior positions, but have not actually done a lot of work themselves for a long time. So we kind of look for people that are, really enjoy actually getting work done and doing things. So that's that first step. And then the second thing is, we really get people to rally around our purpose. We really want people to be working on things that genuinely help Australians take control of their money. And we refresh that all the time. We always use that as a checkpoint. And then we do lots of little things. One of my favourite things is every month I have a breakfast with new staff. And as we're growing quickly, it's always a new bunch. We celebrate lots of different milestones, both big ones, bank license, launching home loans yesterday. We celebrate those things as a team, the whole team. But we also celebrate lots of small things along the way as well, including we've got a lot of the team now have been with us for 12 months, so we celebrate the fact that they've been with us for 12 months.
Fantastic. And what do you see at the moment, particularly in this fast-moving world? What's the biggest challenge facing business leaders?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know I can speak for business leaders in general. I can reflect on the biggest challenge I face as a leader. And I think that for me is trying to prioritise on a daily and weekly basis what we're going to do next. As a new bank with amazing technology, there are so many things we can do better in banking. There are so many things that we can fix or give people a different experience. And the biggest thing as a leader is, how do we trade off which ones we'll do and which ones we'll do first, and not getting caught out in wanting to do everything. I think it's very easy for leaders to get excited about something that's new and then having not solved the first problem or not solved a real problem in the first instance. So that focus, I think, for leaders is a challenge. I certainly find that one of the things I have to work on balancing all the time.
Rob, what's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
I absolutely love the idea that culture eats strategy for breakfast, which is a Peter Drucker quote. I think it really encapsulates the importance of culture and the fact that you have to work on that. And that's not to say you shouldn't have a great strategy. And, we work really hard on having a great strategy. But if you haven't got culture right first, then you can't execute a great strategy. But the other bit of advice that I've been given is around, what does leadership look like? And leadership is about what you do, not what you say. It's what people see you doing. And I think that's absolutely true for all leaders, and that's not just people in leadership positions, but anyone who aspires to lead. It's about how they operate and what they do, not what they say.
What I know you've touched on a few points already on this, but what really excites you about the industry over the next few years?
I think the possibility that technology is enabling in banking is really exciting. The ability for technology to be used to actually help people in their financial lives. is more change will be happening in the next couple of years. There's more change happened already than has in a very long time. The fact that we've been able to build a bank from scratch in a very short period of time, to launch it and to have the pace of change that we've got in terms of our product set and our features for a tiny fraction of the cost of an average compliance project at a big bank. We've been able to set up an end-to-end bank. I think that's really exciting. And how we use that technology, I think, is really exciting. What we can actually do to help people.
Look, I'm sure it must have been a massive hurdle to overcome, even to get a banking license. And I'm sure you've got some war stories from your engagement with the market, the regulators, maybe competitors putting up a bit of a challenge. What did that feeling feel like for you and your team once you achieved that? I'm just curious to know.
I think that the day that we got our banking license, even though we knew it was coming that day, the sense on the floor was absolutely incredible. I mean, we had colleagues, hugging each other, and just a level of excitement. There was a sort of a scream that went across the whole floor. And for me, it's definitely been the most fun I've had in the office space ever. It was a great milestone. But I got to say, equally, seeing our first customer arrive, seeing the first 5-star rating on the App Store, getting our first referral, getting our first recommendation, those things were also equally exciting. And I shared before that people saving money. When you can save people money, it's just a fantastic thing.
What are you doing around well-being? It's obviously a big topic for many companies. What are you doing for well-being within your organisation?
Look, I mentioned before that we're really careful on recruitment and the expectations about what it means to work for 86-400. We have people often ask me about work-life balance, and I say that the answer there is actually to have a life and to find work that's enjoyable and can be a big part of that. So it's work is a massive part of my life at the moment. Startup, building a bank, growing a bank, scaling a bank is incredibly time consuming. But when you really enjoy it and it's something you're very passionate about, it's not hard. So that's the first thing, is getting people that can genuinely enjoy the work we're doing and rally behind what we're doing. But we do lots of small things as well. The beauty about being small is you can try different things. One of the things that we do is a 30-second breathing exercise before we start every meeting. And this is from the board right down. Any meeting starts with a 30-second silent breathing exercise. And it's just a little mindful exercise that takes only 30 seconds. It's only a 30-second investment. But what it does is gets people focused, gets them relaxed, and it gets them in a really good position to have a really productive meeting. And we've found that meetings on average, they're definitely more productive, and they probably save 30 seconds, probably saves us 15 minutes every session. So putting some of those things in and doing those things are really important. The other thing we do is at the end of every meeting, we have what we call a fist of 5, which is basically everyone just puts a hand up. How'd you rate the meeting? And if it's less than 5 or less than 4, we talk about why, and then we change it. So those things are just very small things. We do have lots of other programs and things in place, but those little small things, I think, make a really big difference to a culture and to the well-being of the team.
Rob, what is there perhaps a story or something you can share from your childhood that really influenced and impacted your work ethic later on in life?
I think my parents installed an incredible work ethic in me. We always had jobs as kids, and I think that's served me really well to actually to work and enjoy working. And perhaps because we went through Cyclone Tracy in Darwin when I was very, very young, and so the whole house got blown away and all the possessions got blown away. So from a very young age, I think my parents always put family and friends interaction ahead of possessions and property, and I think that has really influenced me. By the way, my parents are still probably the busiest and most social people I know today, so I certainly have seemed to have got some of their energy as well.
What do you think now the industry is going to look like in 5 years' time, and how's that going to perhaps impact your business model?
I think the big answer here is data. Data will play a big role. It's already starting to, and the big shift is from big businesses thinking they own data and using it to try and sell you more things. That's sort of the philosophy at the moment. Moving towards what we believe is that customers should own their data. And if a customer keeps that data, then they should use it to add some value to that customer. And I think that's the big shift we're seeing. And I think that's just going to accelerate. So we've set ourselves up really well for that. We built our proprietary customer experience engine, which enables us to take external data in. We're already doing things that really help people. So I mentioned the upcoming bills as a forecasting tool. When you think about it, banking hasn't actually changed. It's always been about a record of history. Written first of all, then a statement, and then a ledger that you would see on a phone. But banking will change to about helping you about making decisions in the future.
Rob, I'm going to be really disappointed if I don't see Scott from the Barefoot Investor put your company name in their next edition, because it's really, you're really changing and shifting the market in Australia. So I think that's fantastic. As a final question for you, if you had your time again and were giving your 20-year-old self advice, what's the one thing that you'd say to yourself now, looking back?
I wouldn't give my 20-year-old self any advice. I would encourage, support, push, guide, but I don't think 20-year-olds need any more advice. They just need encouragement and support. There's plenty of advice in books and those sorts of things around there. I think I just support, encourage, guide.
Fantastic. Rob, thanks so much for joining me. If people want to reach out to you, find out more about the company, what's the best way they can do that?
86400.com.au obviously is our website. Download our app. You'll find me on LinkedIn. You'll also find me on Twitter fairly regularly. By all means, reach out, follow what we're doing. If you're in Australia, absolutely download our app and join us in 120 seconds.
Fantastic. And Rob, thanks for joining. And I know on your company page and whoever's doing your marketing and the branding, it absolutely looks fantastic. So kudos to them. And look, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you.
We really hope you enjoyed the podcast today. If you want to listen to more exclusive tips and life lessons from our guest, go to the resources page at vineresources.com.